The short answer to your question is I'm not a fan of Islam. And it's not like disagreeing with them doctrinally, because that's none of my business as a Jewish person. It's not our business how Gentiles handle their own personal religious affairs. It can be tough because I have my opinions as to what's best for that particular Gentile. And it's hard to keep. Sometimes I simply don't keep my mouth shut because I will say something that I might think is advisable. So I tread carefully in that area. But when it comes to Islam, that's where I get into really like muddy water. It's hard to tread through it all, let alone carefully. Because Islam was born in fucking Jews and Christians over. I mean, that's just straight up the way it is. Muhammad's career started out. He was a camel driver, basically a trucker in 7th century Arabian, equivalent. And what happened is there was a woman that he would deliver to. And back then, it wasn't Amazon. You deliver to somebody, you were going on a long, trip. You had to be with a caravan. It was usually not one guy because too many people were eager to rob you and take everything you had and kill you, or worse. Now, I don't think Arabia was the worst place in the world to be doing this. The Romans called what's today Saudi Arabia, they called it Arabia Felix, which means Happy Arabia. Arabs back then were not known to be the way they are now. Pagan Arabs were actually notorious for being jolly, happy people. We don't have any of their writings because, first of all, most of them were illiterate. They were not especially known for being warlike. They had wars because it was a tribal society. These tribes would war, which same concept as gangs now, except the families were a little more emphasized than a typical gang. So Muhammad, a lot of this is conjecture. I'm going to try to stay away from my own conjecture. There's a lot here. Muhammad was illiterate. Now, he married his first wife. He was about 40 years old. We don't really know much about his life before that. I think he met her a little while before then, but she was a widow. She was 40. My bad. She was 40, a little older than that, I think. She was a widow, which was not uncommon. And she was loaded because her husband was rich before he died. He never met her. He never met her husband. And after he married her, I think it was even before then, she wrote down what would later become known as the Quran. So, Muhammad got a little religion going. We don't know much about the early version of it because for 12 years, I think it was, something like 12 years, he couldn't get any followers besides the people he knew really good. Now, Muhammad was definitely a charismatic guy. He had to be, because he had no other talents in terms of intelligence. He was in the town, I believe it was in Mecca, in Medina, I think it was. They called him he was nicknamed the Ear. Why did they call him the Ear? In the way they used language, that meant he believes everything he hears. So he was known for being gullible. Muhammad wasn't sure who he wanted. He believed that his new religion, he came up with this story. Tell me if this doesn't sound familiar. Because every cult leader for the next, I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of years, going all the way up to Salt Lake City, Utah. Well, Mormonism started in New York, but the story of Joseph Smith and the story of Muhammad, almost identical. I was all alone in a cave. I was all alone in the forest. I prayed, which religion should I follow? I prayed, what is the true religion? And the angel Moroni came to me. The angel Gabriel came to me. And he said, don't follow any of the religions. I'm going to show you the true path. He said, "You are my messenger," something like that. And Allah is the only God, whatever. And basically, I was all alone in the cave. And the angel Gabriel came to me and said, "You're in charge now." And that story was his evidence. This would never fly in any other time. And actually, it didn't even fly then. At first, everyone was like, "Get the fuck out of here with this." Only his immediate family were even remotely interested in this, and a few of his friends. He goes to Mecca at some point, and he starts to eventually get followers. I forgot what he did that was different. And he's all peace, love, and dope. He called Jews and Christians people of the book. Never mind the fact that he said their book is corrupted and only my vision is the truth. But you see, he didn't know which way he wanted to go, because he was also sucking up to the pagans, which is very suspicious. Because you'd think, okay, well, there's a lot of evidence that he didn't actually preach monotheism at first. And only after his dealings with the pagans went sour that he finally said, "Nope, there's only one God." See, he wasn't interested in pushing a particular doctrine that he had exactly. He believed he was going to get the Christians and the Jews to both unite under his banner. This would begin the animosity he had with the Jews and the Christians. Especially the Jews. Because it's a bit of a problem if the people who know on what authority, because Allah is the same God as we worship. It's the same. It is that. Yes, ours. We can get into details and say ours didn't commission Muhammad. Well, no shit. But at that point, you can just say we don't worship the same God on any detail. That's just stupid. The description of Allah is the same. In fact, it was us probably that got him calling God Allah, because that was the word that Arabian diaspora Jews used. So that's a long story short. Chapter, the third act is he went to Mecca and got a lot of people with a lot of arrows and swords on his side, and that's when his message changed. From peace, love, dope, you're all people of the book, to you're infidels for not believing me, and you're going to die. And who did he pick first? Well, it was anyone with a lot of wealth, of course. So he could take it. And they're women. That's the other thing. It's an odd thing for a prophet to call his people to do. And there's a passage in the book of Devarim, or Deuteronomy, that is troubling. I paused for a second because I'm like, what's that live at? But let's go with Devarim. Let's go with Deuteronomy. I'm pretty sure Deuteronomy. I just read it in synagogue too a few weeks back when I was visiting Prescott. Anyway. He goes, so that's a long story short. I am not a fan of Islam. It is possible for me to be a fan of Muslims because there's nuance here. Sufis, I'm fine with. They don't take the Quran literally. But Sufis are not liked by the Sunni and the Shia. Now, Sunni and Shia, what's the difference? It's this simple. Muhammad had a nephew that, according to the narrative on the Shia side, when Muhammad died, Abu Bakr succeeded him and immediately started conquering other countries, eventually taking something that didn't belong. He had taken land that didn't belong to him. That's what conquering is. And one of the places he conquered was a place that was stolen from us and then stolen by somebody else from them. And then Muhammad's boy Abu Bakr stole it from him. And that is what is today Israel. Muhammad had no intention of expanding to Israel. He never dreamt that it would go that far. But after his death, his boy, Abu Bakr, accomplished this. Now, it's a mighty strange thing because you would think he claims to be friendly with Jews despite all the bloodshed he did towards Jews before, but he's, he's still preaching the peace, love, dope thing and practicing something different and preaching something different when it's convenient. So he takes over, and now he has to explain to everybody that he had already said this land belongs to the Jews. Of course, he didn't own it at the time. Now he's got his boy Abu Bakr had taken over and placed Muslim clerics in charge. And I don't know if they use the word sultan yet. He was already talking a lot of mad smack about the Jews, how we're cursed by God, destined to be humiliated forever before in the final day of judgment when the last of us are killed. Yeah, that's all in the hadiths. There are Muslims that reject the hadiths outright. There are Muslims who only reject a certain segment of the hadiths. And then you've got the Shia. Now, they're the ones that didn't follow Abu Bakr. They're the ones that followed Muhammad's nephew, Ali. It was basically in the area of Persia where they followed Ali. This schism has caused more wars than probably any other schism in history. Muslims fighting Muslims for following the wrong successor to the Prophet. I guess that'll be it for now. That's a good superficial thing. And I think I did a somewhat decent job without putting my own zinger of what I feel. But you did ask how I feel about Islam. So I guess, yeah. There are Muslims, a few, that take the Quran as a metaphor, or you have people like, and this is a Shia that I'm going to mention. He looks like Sacha Baron Cohen. He is his name is Imam Tawhidi. And Imam Tawhidi is one of the ones that he doesn't take it as figurative, but he believes that the dawn of Islam was meant to establish political expansion. It was not supposed to be ongoing. That time is long past, and Islam is not. He interprets Islam to mean Islam is supposed to be peaceful now. It was meant to be peaceful at this point. Everything Muhammad needed to accomplish was okay. I am in no position to tell him he's wrong. All I know is the vast majority of the Muslim world disagrees with him. However, I love that man, and he's a Muslim. I feel bad. I think about him every time I draw a picture of Muhammad or something, or rip a Quran up, because I think about him and it makes me feel bad. But as long as they continue to kill people for drawing Muhammad and ripping up Qurans, I'm sorry, I got responsibility. Because if people stop doing it, then we're encouraging them to murder people for ripping up Qurans. So it's a tough thing because there's a few Muslims I like. Less and less all the time, but there's certain ones. So there you go for now with that.